A day to be talked about for until no one remembers. December 1944. Hitler's last gamble on the Western Front, the Ardennes Offensive, what we now call the Battle of the Bulge. His plan? Split the Allied forces with a surprise attack through the dense Ardennes forest. The goal was to recapture Antwerp, disrupt supply lines, and force a peace deal in the West. He believed bad weather would ground Allied planes, and that his tanks could punch through thin American lines. It was bold, desperate, and based on a crumbling fantasy of German strength. What came next would shock the world. Well, first, this video contains content related to Nazism, World War II, death, and Hitler's name. This video is not supporting Hitler's side, and I am proud that the war ended without Hitler's Reichsfest plan. Anyway, back to the video. At dawn on December 16, the silence of the Ardennes shattered. Over 1,600 German artillery guns opened fire across an 80-mile front. The Allies, caught off guard, were still waking up, or eating breakfast, when the ground shook beneath them. Then came the tanks. Massive Panther and Tiger tanks rolled out of the forests, followed by thousands of infantrymen, many dressed in stolen American uniforms. Some U.S. soldiers thought it was a drill. It wasn't. German paratroopers had landed behind the lines, sowing chaos. Roads jammed. Fog and snow kept Allied planes grounded. For a terrifying moment, it looked like Hitler's gamble might actually work. But the Americans didn't break. In towns like St. Vith and Bastogne, small groups of U.S. soldiers dug in, even though they were outgunned, outnumbered, and freezing to death. They didn't back down. In Bastogne, the 101st Airborne was surrounded, low on ammo and food. When the Germans demanded they surrender, General McAuliffe just shot back with a single word, "Nuts." Seriously? That was his reply. Meanwhile, U.S. engineers were blowing up bridges and ambushing German convoys, slowing the whole advance. Every hour they held out mattered. Then, the weather cleared. Allied planes swooped in, bombing German positions and dropping supplies. Hitler's big gamble had hit a wall. The bulge in the line was starting to collapse. For every American life lost, Hitler's hopes were slipping further. His last-ditch attempt was turning into a frozen nightmare, and each setback was like a withdrawal from the drugs he was clinging to. Hitler lost, Americans won. Europe won. The failure of the Ardennes offensive wasn't just a military loss, it was the moment Hitler's fantasy finally cracked. He had thrown everything he had left into that push, fuel he couldn't spare, tanks he couldn't replace, young men barely trained. He believed, hoped, that maybe, just maybe, a surprise blow would force the Allies to negotiate. But it didn't. The Americans held, the weather turned, and his troops were pushed back through the same forests they'd charged into. From that point on, Hitler stopped showing his face. He stayed hidden in his bunker, ranting to maps that no longer mattered. The dream he'd clung to for over a decade was dying in the snow, and he knew it. A few months later, with Berlin surrounded and the war all but lost, he took his own life, alone, underground, while the world he tried to conquer moved on without him. The Battle of the Bulge reminds us just how fragile freedom can be, and how much it costs to protect it. It was fought in forests and towns we might never visit, by people we'll never meet, but their stand shaped the world we live in now. If Hitler had succeeded, the war might have dragged on for years more. Instead, ordinary soldiers held the line in impossible conditions, and that mattered. Their grit helped bring an end to one of the darkest chapters in history. Today, we inherit the peace they fought for, not perfect, not easy, but hard-earned. And remembering moments like this isn't just about the past, it's about what we're willing to stand for when things feel uncertain, cold, and overwhelming. Just like they did. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to me yap. I am glad. Comment if you like. Sub if you like. Like if you like. I like potatoes and history, so I'm out.